And, you know, I would love to be Brittany Broski. Like, obviously, if I could transform into Brittany Broski, like, well, I wouldn't because I love my life. But I love my life, and make sure you tell my therapist that. That's not funny, I guess. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to... I feel like a clown, literally. Welcome back, everybody, to Gab with Sab. I'm not loving this. Well, welcome back to Gab with Sab. It's me, your host, Sabrina Stangler. Welcome back to Gab with Sab. It's your host, Sabrina Stangler. Welcome. I am coming at you live on a Friday. And when I post this, who's to say? Why do you guys keep pressing me about this? I'll post it eventually. So that felt very Gabby windy of me. I'll post it eventually. Like, that's not quite it, but like a little. Let me know what you think in the comments, obviously. Speaking of Friday and when I'm going to post it, it is currently May 1st, and I have not uploaded a podcast episode since February, March. It's been a while. And I recorded all the episodes, I think, in the month of January and February. Yes, because my third episode, Friday the 13th, was Friday the 13th of February. Have not recorded since then. Been nearly 3 months, bitch. And so, yeah. So I feel some type of way about that, but that's okay. We rally. Truthfully, and bear with me here because I am re-recording this intro. I have been kind of sad the past few months, and that makes me feel stupid, dumb, pathetic, useless, helpless. I mean, the list really goes on, but nevertheless, she persisted. No, we're like going through it, TM, and I like wish I could tell you that I'm like getting all the help I need and knowing to ask for it even, and that I'm doing things that make me feel better. In some ways I am doing some things that make me feel better. I am getting some of the help I need, but it is like clearly not enough yet. And I see where my shortcomings are, and I'm like working to mend that gap. And this gets into where we start to feel a little pathetic, right? Okay? Because it's like, you can't just like stop being fucking sad. Like, you know that going out for a walk is going to make you feel better. Like, bitch, get out there. But here I sit recording Gab with Sab. I don't know. This fuels my soul in a different way as well. So it's not like this is draining and like that would be energizing. Like, this is also energizing. And so yeah, I have not been feeling awesome. And I do mean that in like a capital D depression kind of way. And so, like, I feel like my lust for life is, like, a little bit here and there, a little bit, like, there and gone. And so, yesterday I felt good for a little bit. And so, some are saying we're on the ups. And it was, I think, the result of me, like, getting something done. And, because when I can't get my work done, it just is, like, the slipperiest fucking slope I've ever been on. I need to figure out how to be more consistent with like delivering on like incremental goals or something, because if I feel like I'm slipping behind, it is just like I'm saying, it's a slippery ass slope of like self-pity and wallowing and being like, I'm no good at this. I can't believe I'm even charging money for this. How do I charge money for this? Like, oh, I'm not going to bill these hours, or like I can't even bother to like I cannot fucking focus, you guys. And so I'm trying to get back on ADHD meds. Obviously I need them. I mean, obviously I really want them, and I'm trying to cope with that because I like obviously lived my life up until being like 24 without even the knowledge that I had ADHD, let alone being medicated for it or treated in any way, shape, or form. I was coping with all my like self-developed strategies. And now that I have like had the medication for my mental health, it was helpful. And now that I'm without it again, I'm like, I don't have the same systems that I went into this with, now that I like haven't had to rely on them. And so developing new systems is kind of like, it's tough. It's tough because I do like, I not only do I not have the same systems in place, but I don't have the same structure in place at this point. Like, I'm in one of the least structured periods of my life. Like, because I'm not in school, I don't have like a consistent work schedule, really. Not really, and nobody's really enforcing it for me, and besides myself, because I'm self-employed. And so, which I am running into different challenges with that, actually. And so, so I don't have any of this structure in place. My systems have escaped me, and because I've been able to do it before and now I can't, I'm just like I'm feeling the P word. I'm feeling pathetic. I feel like I should be able to figure it out, and I'm just struggling to, and I'm feeling a lot of shame and a lot of guilt because of that. And it's been cold, you guys. It's been cold. It's been dark. Today was a beautifully sunny day, but it was also so cold. And so I'm ready for the weather to turn. I just got back from the Netherlands, and the weather was fucking beautiful. I loved it. And it was beautiful in that it was like sweatshirt weather. And I love sweatshirt weather, dude. Sweatshirt and like a light jacket, maybe a vest. It's my season. It's my season right now, clothing wise. I love my vest. I need more vests. And I knew that. I knew that cropped vests were going to really like be a moment for me. I need more colors, but I am pretty committed to thrifting them. And I just like haven't even stumbled across any online. I maybe should be like searching Depop for that on a regular basis. Whatever. So I've been sad, you guys. I've been sad, and I am trying to make myself feel better, but I fear it may just be a season of sadness, and I just have to believe that like it's not going to last forever, cuz it never does. And let's hope it finishes up soon. Okay? Diva speed to me. With that all being said, welcome to Gab with Sap. I'm your host, Sabrina Stangler, and let's get into the topics. So the first thing I have is a little quip from Colin, and it's, yeah, I like boys, big ol' yabos, B-O-Y, big ol' yabos. Good one, Colin. I like it. Snaps, claps for that, the whole lot. Next, we're taking a hard pivot into the hard right and talking about traditionalists. And I think, like, I had this realization that being like, let's go back, like, let's go back to like how things were, like things were so simple when I was growing up. And this accent doesn't feel like indicative of this character that I'm painting, but they're like we should go back to how it was before. Like I loved growing up in the fucking 50s, 60s, 70s. Like things were simpler back then. And I just think it's such like a self-report that you like don't like your life as it currently is, because you're not a child anymore, or you're not like a young person anymore, and you want to be able to like act like one without consequences for your behaviors, or with somebody being literally responsible for you, like a parent or guardian, maybe two of them, maybe more. And it's just like I think this because it's like you don't really want things how they were then. Like what you want is that, and this is me speculating a little bit, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I'm right, that it is like this yearning for just like a time with more freedom and a time with less responsibilities, where that responsibility can even extend to like being a good member of your community, which I think involves being respectful to your neighbors. Do you know what I mean? Like them having all this beef about like queerness, about transness, about the like woke left. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. It's nonsense. It is to distract from like the real policy issues they're introducing that actually have material effects on us. And I'm saying these like vague kind of like broad stroke statements, but like I know I like feel confident that these people are using like trans people as a scapegoat, and it just like, I mean, it pisses me off, don't get me started in that regard, but like it's cruel and it's pathetic. Actually, I'm calling my fucking self pathetic, let alone I'm saying, and I think traditionalists are pathetic because they're like, things were easier back then. And it's like, no, just because you didn't know about all this like complexity and nuance. You didn't have to have the capacity to hold many truths at once. You didn't have to have and you were probably, again, like a young person who like had less they had to worry about. And so like you are now burdened by your age and people expecting you to know better. It's embarrassing when you're like, I didn't have to worry about this, however many years ago, or even like, 2016 was a different time. Like, it's like, again, it's like, it's all arbitrary. You're just like, things are like, they're trying to make the case that things are changing in the wrong direction in terms of like leftness or like wokeness or liberalism or progressivity, progress. Okay. They think the progress is going generally in the wrong direction. And like, I just like really can't imagine like looking at indicators of like, I don't know, the direction that we're headed as a society and being like, yeah, that is definitely because we let people think they're a different gender and act like it. Like, are you fucking serious? And again, like I was saying, I know that they're not. This is distraction tactics. And listen, I don't like to call anybody dumb or stupid besides myself, but I think they're preying on people who should know better but don't. Like we should all know better, but we're not all in that place. Like we are all on a journey, and I think they're preying on people who are not to the point in their journey that they are protecting themselves from being manipulated into believing that like truly the cause of this like economic suffering is like illegal immigrants, quote unquote. Like, it's like, get a fucking clue. And again, I said, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, and this was supposed to be a quick button topic, but yeah, this is just like for the foreseeable future, when people yearn for a time before, it will immediately read to me as like, you just want to not care. But I fear you have to care in order to be a good member of the community. And if you want the community to serve you, you have to serve it. I rest my case. Speaking of American stuff, and by American I mean United Statesian stuff, because as I was just outside of the country, I was reminded that American can apply to not only people from the United States of America, but any of the North or South American continents. And so yes, I'm American, but right now I'm speaking to like the United States of America. And so we recently had an election, and wouldn't you know it, like clockwork, not like clockwork, I guess like clockwork, when one has a poll, when one has a public event that many people are joining, there will be a bake sale. And I said, isn't that just the most American thing? Like, especially when it's to support like that. Like, I vote in an elementary school, and it is to like raise money for the students to like do something. And I'm like, how fucking ridiculous is it that we have to crowdfund the resources to like educate our children? Don't get me started, dude. Don't get me started is going to be my new, making sure the mic is still on. I think don't get me started is my new, what was it before? Summer saying. It's my new summer saying. Because I'm still on the summer saying, but I'm using it like I'm riding a bike, dude. Like, it's natural in so many situations, and it's become much like a tattoo on your skin. It's just kind of like part of you now. Oh my God. I'm so gassy because I'm drinking a carbonated beverage. It is a carbonated THC beverage. Actually, it is a Sprecher root beer branded THC drink that I found at the liquor store nearby me. And so, yeah, Root Beer, they have not sponsored this, and they don't endorse anything that I've said. Maybe they do, I haven't asked. But it's delicious. It tastes just like Sprecher root beer, bro. And 10 milligrams of THC, there you go. And also, it's a good high. Like, you'll see throughout the duration of this podcast, it's a good time. So, obviously, if you make the personal decision for yourself, as is your prerogative, to consume THC, this is a good way to go. This is a good way to go, in my opinion. Let's back it up. Bake sales at the poll. It is And that is something pathetic that I would like point to, like leadership in these areas where they're affecting the budget for like the Department of Education or the school districts in your counties. I believe that's at the county level. It might not be. But at whatever level that's happening, it is just so embarrassing to be like, we're not allocating money to education. Like, they have enough. Are you serious? Have you ever seen a school? Like, do you remember being in school? Underfunded. And maybe the people in power are the people going to private schools, and so they're not like materially invested, or like, excuse me, they haven't had like lived experience in an underfunded education system. And in part, like, while I believe in freedom to, you know, do what you want with for your child for their education, like, and I, like, it gives me pause. I in part think that like everybody should have to go to public schools, and we should just make public schools good enough. And I know that like there is complexity in developing budgets for these people, but like, or for these districts, for these schools, for whatever. Like, I understand that budgeting and trying to like, you know, not, and trying to plan and trying to, I just think that it being anything but publicly funded and being amply supported by like government money is just ridiculous. Like, I think that I have a vision and a desire and an ideal for government that is that they should serve the people. Come on. Like, oh, call me an idealist as long as you're calling. But I'm not a libertarian. I like want the government that represents or that serves us to be committed to that end. And underfunded public education just like feels like such a glaring example of like how our politicians and how our like government is failing us. It is justifying cutting education budgets is actually crazy. Like, you don't want schools to have more damn money? Are you serious? The future of our nation, bro. The future of the world. These are our kids. Like, do you not feel a responsibility for all of them? Like, would you not rather them all be more educated? And that's exactly it. I think, and I don't want to sound too like QAnon here. Like, I'm distancing myself from the QAnon community, but like, I think they want people to stay stupid. I think they want people to lack critical thinking skills such that they cannot like make material change in the world. And that is cruel. That is sick, and that's fucking twisted. Ooh, I'm starting to feel a level of high where I'm like gonna get pissed off. So let's move on to another subject. So on a lighter note, on a lighter note, I have been like meeting a lot of new people lately, and I think that finding myself in other people is like, it's like, that is so great, because like I think I'm awesome, and I found that awesomeness out in the world. Like, awesome recognize awesome, and I don't want to like overuse the word awesome here. It feels very like, I don't know, just like an outdated term, but like it is like maybe the best feeling in the world to be like, to find yourself, like aspects of yourself that you like reflected to you and other people, or for people to like, you know, call out different attributes of yourself that like you believe yourself to possess. Oh God, it's just magical. That being said, I was thinking about like, if a child found my YouTube videos and was like a regular Gab with Sab viewer, I would say to the parents, there's mental illness here. Maybe go to a doctor, like a qualified one, qualified in the mental health department. You know what I mean? So, because there's nothing neurotypical about any of this. I don't know. We had to do an activity this past week at the UIF summit, and it was around this like academic wheel of privilege, and one of the like little pie slices in the wheel had to do with neurodivergence, and it was like, you know, neurotypical like a one or two neurodivergences and then like multiple neurodivergence related things, or like mental, it didn't say like mental handicaps, but it was talking about neurodivergence. And so neurodivergence. And I was like, oh my God. So that's not typical to have like several diagnoses? Like, that's crazy. And so I think I had started to feel like, because me personally, when the last time my doctor wrote down a bunch of acronyms to describe what's going on in my brain, there were like upwards of 10 letters going on, like 12 to 14. And I was like, shit, you got acronyms for all of them, huh? And so I guess I'm being reminded that like whatever and however my brain is working, like other people are not thinking like this. And maybe that's for the best considering what I shared earlier. I would hope that people generally feel better about themselves or about their lust for life, if you will. So because like all things considered, I like I was saying, I like myself. Like I think that I'm awesome, and I don't always want to, I'm gonna cry. I don't always want to live. I'm not always excited to live. Whatever I say here can't possibly be like enough to appropriately like caveat or introduce this topic. And yet I think it's like important to talk about and just like see in the wild so that you don't feel so fucking alone or so like uniquely fucked up. And so I try not to let my letters, my 12 to 14 letters, you know, like dictate how I feel about myself or be like representative of my worth or my like quality of life potential. But I don't even quite remember what I was saying, but this is all to say, I guess I just want to say to my like friends and loved ones who are kind of the only ones watching this, I am okay in the sense that like I'm not a danger to myself or others. I'm not thinking about, like, I'm not making plans. I'm gonna fucking cry, guys. I'm not making plans. I'm okay. And I like am getting the help I need to the extent that I can. I fear and I feel that additional therapy or like an increased frequency in therapy, right now I'm on like monthly, bi-monthly basis because it is just expensive, and I simply don't have enough money to like justify it. And maybe like this again, like this feels like something that's not kosher to share online, but like I'm carrying credit card debt right now, and if I'm already carrying credit card debt, like I might as well also be happy, or I might as well not like be so fucking sad. God. And so maybe it's worth it for me to like increase my appointments. Maybe I'll start a GoFundMe. That feels silly, but I don't know. Maybe I don't know what to do entirely, but trust I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm doing my best. I'm giving it my all. So anyway, so yes, if your kids are watching Gab Sab, go to the doctor, go to the mental health practitioner in your area. On a lighter note, I was watching a Pinterest video, like somebody making some craft out of a deck of cards, and they were like, yeah, you use one card for every week in the year. And I was like, holy shit, there's 52 cards in a deck of cards and 52 weeks in a year. Guys, is anybody talking about this? That is a crazy coincidence. Like two really, really common numerical values. Like I just feel like, and 52 might as well be a prime number at this point. It's 26 times 2. 26 is not prime, so okay, whatever. But it's made up of 13 4 times. Those are hella prime. 26 only has 4 factors. Yeah. So, I don't know, 52 is just like such a strange number. And so how coincidental that has a deck of cards. You guys, I feel so silly now. A deck of cards is made up of 4 sets of 13 cards. Come on. That's crazy. I just like did the math. So each quarter is made up of 13 weeks in the year. And then that's shared across 3 months. That's so interesting. Well, no, that's not necessarily true. That would mean some quarters are different lengths than one another if they're at the month marks. So like Q1, shorter. Is that true? That's crazy. That's crazy, girl. I had not considered that like the 3-month chunks of the quarters of the year would be different numbers of days. Oh my God. This is insane. This is insane. Guys, this is crazy. Okay, speaking of Pinterest, I wanted to say that it's my favorite social media these days. Like, I think I said it's only good vibes over there. It's kind of like a really good time. Did I tell you guys I got new glasses? Holy shit. New glasses alert. Because oh my God. I will talk about this in the long form section about why I got new glasses. Back to Pinterest. Keep it together. Come on. I was saying that Pinterest is my favorite social media. It's just good vibes over there. And I feel like so many people are tapped into their creativity on that platform. And there's just like so much abundance of like I do sometimes feel like I'm seeing the same creators kind of again and again, which is okay because I like them. But, you know, next thing you know, a new creator is like filling up your feed, and it's like, or a new trend, and it's like, it feels like there's so much joy and there's so much like depth to the creativity that's happening over there, whether that be fashion, whether that be crocheting, whether that be, I get my memes on Pinterest now. Like, I get my like little reaction images, and Pinterest is actually a great source of memes. Like, I've never really had like a source ever since like I stopped using iFunny, but I would like see stuff kind of come across, and I'd see stuff on TikTok like when that started becoming a thing, but I'm not like a big TikTok user anymore because I don't know, I have a tough enough time on Instagram Reels, and and like TikTok will like, the algorithm is like, I don't know, it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite. I like what Instagram is showing me. Yeah, Pinterest is some really good shit. My biggest complaint with Pinterest is that they have too many ads, and I think that I've talked about this in a previous episode. Now that I say this all out loud, I do have some new things to say about it. One is that I'm noticing that Aquaphor, the brand of like lotion and lip products, they are pumping money into cuntifying their chapstick. They are really trying to make it like it girls use Aquaphor. Oh my God. It's so weird. Like, they are sponsoring YouTubers who like Alicia Marie. Was it Alicia Marie? It was Lord DIY for sure. But then they have other like presumably like short form content, like short form platform like TikTok and Instagram influencers just like using Aquaphor in like a video and like having it be part of their like routine. And I'm like, holy shit. You guys are like, I see Aquaphor ads so often, and it has been months and months and months. Like, they're putting their time and their money into cuntifying their damn chapstick. And so I have heard good things from other people. I'm like starting to get like, they're starting to get to me. Somebody who I know who does not live in the US, she lives in Peru. She was talking about how she really likes Aquaphor, and I was like, did they get you too? And she was like, no, I've been using it for years and years. So, and you know what? Her lips look plumped. Shout out Marcella. Love you, girl. Other things I'm seeing on Pinterest, and this is me identifying a fashion alert for this summer. It's going to be soccer shorts. Soccer shorts are going to be big. I think rugby shorts are right up there with that like style where it's like short and there's room for like big thighage, whether you have big thighage or not. Something I'll say as a girl with big thighage, I need the inseam to be long enough that my thighs are not going to chafe together. So I think, like happens with all the trends, the skinny girls are going to have this one. They're going to have this one. It's going to be good because they're going to hang a little loose on their hips, but it's going to give them like a little bit of an illusion of a shape. And this is not me trying to be shady. This is not a read, just an observation. I'm happy for you. I will continue to wear shorts with longer inseams. Maybe bicycle shorts, biker shorts, bike shorts, biker shorts. I wear them on my motorcycle. So anyways, as I was evaluating the soccer shorts trend, I was like, damn, I think I want new clothes, and I think I'm like coming to accept that I like having some freshness in my wardrobe. Like I thought that I was like dialing in on my style, but it's again like I'm 27, and like while I am certainly dialing in on my style, I think it is just going to be ever changing. It's going to be like, what do you call it? Like temporal. It is of the moment, and it is influenced now not only by my like immediate community who I see in person, but like by fucking Pinterest. And so like there are going to continue to be new things that I realize that I also like and that I might want integrated into my wardrobe. I'm like hoping and praying that it tapers off and that I like, again, like I continue to dial in a little bit more finely, and it'll be like seldom that I want to add new garments or switch out garments. And that another reason that I've had to switch out garments is because I gain weight. And so now I have to get bigger clothes. And so some clothes have stayed with me, like this sweatshirt, because the sweatshirt used to be too big on me. Now it fits quite comfortably. And it's like a large or something like that. It fits quite comfortably. I would not fit into a small sweatshirt anymore, which is crazy. I like never thought my upper body would really grow because it was my legs and my butt, my big fat juicy ass that was growing. It was and my thighs and my dare I say my calves. I don't know, my calves have always been big, but not like huge, but they've always been big. Like somebody made fun of me on my soccer team in high school. They were like, "Your calves are disgustingly big." And I was like, "You fucking bitch." But I just was in my head and I was like, "Well, I might act like I didn't hear that." but no, because it's my thick voluptuous curvy hind end that has been growing, I have to get new clothes. And I don't know, having new clothes like gives me the opportunity to like, you know, literally try that on for size, like see if that is something I like. So the last thing I want to say is that Pinterest, along with Instagram Reels, like, and Facebook, fucking Facebook, I need to delete that app. I'm not like posting on Marketplace right now, so I need to delete it. They are all like, I think that they can tell that I'm sad because they're giving me hope core, and that makes me feel some type of way. Like that the internet algorithms are like, yeah, so we've locked in on the fact that she's depressed, right? And so like maybe let's give her some good stuff. Like she's earned it, she deserves it. I know that the algorithms are not like that agentic, where it's like they have conscious and tendencies toward improving my well-being. They have tendencies toward keeping me on the platform. And so, but I think it's funny to imagine that they do have some agency. And so that is the end of our quick button topics. When I come back, we are going to be getting into whether or not Kanye deserves forgiveness and the threshold of fame that we move from rooting to them to expecting responsibility from them, communicating accessibly, and how life is like a game of Yahtzee, you know, it's just, it is. And I'll tell you all about it. So I'll be right back. Glasses up close reveal. Period. They're gold. They're gold. Check that. Okay, everybody. As promised, let me scroll up. As promised, I'm going to tell you why I got new glasses. I'll keep this brief. To make a long fucking story short, I walk outside my house. I sit on my little patio step. I smoke maybe 2-3 puffs of a cigarette, and then I put it out because my friend rolls up. I'm ready to jump in the car. I get up, I fall down. I get up, I fall down. And so on my walk out the little sidewalk, I fall onto my face and my hand and my knee and cut my shit up. I scratch the fuck out of my skin, and I scratch the fuck out of my glasses. And so like I'm talking big like gouges in the center of my lens. So tragic, as these are the glasses that I famously paid like $600 for. Maybe I would not be so poor if I did not pay $600 for those glasses 2 years ago, back when I had it like that. And did I really have it like that? Absolutely not. Why the fuck? I was like, well, I guess this is the last time I'll spend money on frames. But lo and behold, in order to go get those frames replaced, or excuse me, to get the lenses replaced, I would have had to do an updated eye exam because they're like, you have to have an up-to-date prescription. So, and then I said, I just want to get the glasses. And then they're like, well, you'd have to schedule a styling appointment. And I was like, a styling appointment, bitch? What the fuck? Where you're going to sell me some more glasses? Hell no. And then I learned that my friend got new lenses for his glasses at the same place. And I don't know if I'll call them out by name because I'm not trying to smear a small business like that, like on a public platform. That doesn't really feel cool. But they still cost like $200 to replace the lenses, which is like so much money. Like, are you serious, bro? $200 for lenses? And so, like, whatever. And that might have been after insurance. I don't know. Speaking of which, so I got these on Zenni because they don't require me to have an up-to-date prescription. They just let you get whatever the fuck you want, which is great. I think putting that agency into our hands is good. I think eye doctors would disagree. And I think that they would say it's irresponsible to, like, give people the power to buy prescriptions that are out of date and might, like, you know, worsen the quality of your eye over time. I think for the most part that's like not really what's on the line. I know that using like inappropriate corrective lenses or like not using corrective lenses at all when you need them can lead to Alzheimer's. I don't know if like, I would have to imagine though that having slightly out of date glasses is like better than nothing. And so like that doesn't feel like a stretch to say, right? And so like providing access to that might actually be preventing Alzheimer's if you think about it. So to make a long fucking story short, I fell in front of my house. It was really embarrassing. I didn't even get it on video. Nobody even saw. Like my friend in the car, shout out Brady, he just like looked up and I was on the ground and he was like, so he got up and helped me. So we were gonna go to a coffee shop to like co-work for the day, and I was like, yeah, let's still go, and I'll put up a picture of how I looked that day, because he was like, you don't have to go anymore, like if you're good, I'll see you later. And I was like, no, I'll go. And he was like, okay. But then, yeah, thankfully my wits came about me and I was like, maybe I'll stay home. Because then I ended up sitting on my chair for like 30 minutes, kind of like taking it all in. Because I was quite shaken. I broke my fucking water bottle. And I knocked the captive bead. So the style of nose ring that I have, I'll get close. The style of nose ring I have is called a captive bead because it's like a ring and then it has a bead with two little dents in it that the edges of the ring pinch into. And so the bead is like slightly larger than the gap that is presented by the ring. And so anyway, knocked the bead out, thankfully fucking found it, because I fell and I didn't go far and my face went into the fucking concrete. I can like not stress that enough. I thought that I might be concussed when it happened. I was like, and I've never had like a head trauma like that, and so I was like, I don't know if I'm concussed. Like, how am I supposed to fucking know? Colin's out of town, so I have no one here to like be keeping tabs on my behavior like that. And so I took it easy for a few days, slept a lot, but to really try to make a long story short, I'm better now. I still have some like red patches on my face from where those wounds are healing, and my finger is nearly healed, but my knee is like, my scab is almost gone. I still have scabs on my fingers, but my knee has a fat ass scar. Like, I'm talking the size of like, it's bigger than a silver dollar. It's quite large. It's a big fucking patch. It's like maybe 2 inches in diameter. And it's just like dark scarred skin, and I'm like, ugh. I cannot help but be vain and feel like my leg is gonna look so ugly this summer. Like, ultimately I know it's whatever and like I'm gonna get over it, but it's just like fresh scars are just kind of like so, especially because my skin is so pale, they are just like so dark in contrast, and it just like looks a little bit, it's not that it looks like ugly or unsightly in like in just like a that's not my cup of tea way. It's in a little bit of like an unsettling, like that's a little bit nasty way. So anyway, I fell, whatever, I'm fine. My stuff is healing, it's cool, it's chill. that all out of the way, let us get into the long form topics of today's video, which might actually end up being a bit shorter considering how deep I dug in the first section. But hey, what's a Gab with Sab episode without digging deep? You know what I'm saying? Okay, so Kanye back in the fold. I'm talking about this. It's not just for clickbait, but I will be putting it in the title. This came up because I saw a post that was like talking about how, in contrast, like women in the spotlight have to walk a tightrope, and it's so stark a contrast that he just gets like welcomed back in to the fold, that like people are very willing to forgive his like unsavory behavior, to say the least, which was actually, why would I say the least? He was being fucking racist and like promoting like Nazi shit, right? Like he was kind of saying some horrible things. And so what I'm about to say, and well, I'll just say it. I'm not advocating for necessarily Kanye being like chastised for like, I don't know, experiencing like challenges with his mental health. Like, I would sure be the pot calling the kettle crazy. But I think this point that like women have to walk a tightrope and he just gets let back in, I think we should be rephrasing this to like not being harder on men, but being easier on women. Like and maybe that was the point of the post I saw. Like, it didn't seem like it. And I feel like I see this sentiment a lot. That's like, women are held to such a higher standard and we just like let men do whatever. And it's like, no, wait. I think we should all be able to kind of do whatever. Like, I think it's unfair that men can do whatever and women can't. And that doesn't mean that like we need to hold everybody to a higher standard necessarily. Like, I think it's generally good for us to have like forgiveness in our hearts and souls, and for us to like hold people with the capacity for them to like grow and change. I think we also need to hold people accountable for their misgivings. And so whether like how that looks, I guess I'm saying it's going too far, and it's going unfairly far towards like people of a particular gender. But I think this gets into what I hinted at talking about last week, which is like, what is the threshold of fame where we move from like rooting for that person to expecting responsibility of their platform, and like whether or not we hold room for mistakes for them. Because I think that because somebody like Kanye has such a big platform, I am holding him to a different standard, not than women in his particular role, or in his particular like caliper of social hierarchy, but I hold him to a different standard than I do like people that I really know in real life. Because like, I don't fucking know Kanye, but he has a massive platform and is reaching, you know, millions of people. That kind of influence cannot be without it's like somebody has to instill the consequences for you having these like broad sweeping negative implications. And it feels very obvious when it's stuff like saying slurs, or like trying to be like Jewish people are at the core of suffering in the world. Like that has consequences on other people. And so like, you should have consequences for saying that, in part because we want to show that like you can't say that shit and get away with it, but also because like you have done material harm. And I guess this is your just desserts. And so like, I always come back to this idea of like justice and who should wield that power, and like to what end. Like, how do we decide what is just? And you know, people are everywhere on the spectrum, from like, we should follow like what like the government is doing good things generally in that sense, and we should trust them, to like, only God can judge me, and several places in between. I don't really know where I land. I'm sorry that this podcast is not one of firm stances in the Department of Justice, but I think that this way that we police famous people is kind of like a microcosm of like how we want to see justice carried out in real life in like our peers and our community. And I feel like people want more. Like, well, I don't know. I don't know that I think cancel culture is probably experiencing like a vocal minority thing where people who believe that cancel culture should be like in effect, that we should like hold people accountable per se by like fully canceling them and like framing them as irredeemable people when they do something bad. I would be willing to bet that more people probably fall on the side of like being willing to forgive people. Like I was saying earlier, I think that makes sense. Like, I think I have a lot of forgiveness for people, but there's a line where I'm like, I don't know, like you'd have to say a lot of the right thing for me to like be rooting for you. And so like Emma Chamberlain, rooting for her. She has grown in fame, in celebrity, in wealth, in fortune, and yet I'm like still rooting for her. And she has like, I don't know, they the mysterious they, like they tried to cancel her for her like merch drop where she like blurred out the items and they were all really expensive. And I am like, that is so stupid. Okay, whatever. Like, not a cancelable offense in my opinion. I'm also seeing the cancellation try to happen with Chappell Roan, where they're like, Chappell Roan like kicked one of her fans out. Like, Chappell Roan punched one of her fans in the teeth, dude. Like, they're just grasping at straws. And I don't know, like, who is on this mission to, like, dethrone Chappell. But it's, like, I don't know. It's very annoying. It's very telling. And it feels like, I think I've seen people compare it to, like, the Britney treatment, where, like, to the point of, like, women have to walk a tightrope. The way that popular media is, like, portraying these events is, like, spinning a completely different narrative. And we also saw this with Justin Bieber, that, like, Justin was, like, I mean, he did some, like, silly stuff, but the, like, bad stuff was that he was, like, attacking or, like, being too mean to paparazzi who were, like, invading his privacy. And, like, at Justin's urging to, like, back the fuck up, they were, like, not complying. And so, like, and he was a child for many of these interactions. Like, I have a lot more, like, compassion for Justin and the way that, like, he had fallen out of favor with me into my, like, late adolescence, early adulthood, because I was, like, and I didn't really know why. I wasn't like, oh, I feel strongly about this, but I was like, I generally just, like, I'm not rooting for him. Now I'm rooting for him again, because I'm like, oh yeah, you kind of had a weird upbringing. Like, that was, not many people have had that experience. So do I think Kanye deserves forgiveness? Yes. He's gonna have to, like, I don't know, prove himself to me a little bit for me to, like, you know, believe that he, you know, condemns his like I said, at the least unsavory behavior. But yeah, I've got room to forgive him. Like, I've got room to forgive a lot of people. DJT is not on that list. JE is not on that list either. And so I don't know how to serve justice appropriately, but I have another note about justice, and it was about, like, what is the purpose of, I guess not just what the purpose of organizing is, but, like, what our job is as the people, as, like, the collective people, to, like, take justice into our own hands, and, like, should we do that? And I think that it's all about, like, disruption and fear. Like, I think, and I may have said this last episode too, that, like, we, like, CEOs should be afraid to fucking commit atrocities against the, like, citizens of this country, to prioritize their pocketbooks over the well-being of their fellow Americans. Like, ooh, don't piss me off. And so, like, then that makes me wonder, like, how many CEOs need to be assassinated or attempted? Maybe, again, like, it's just about the fear. How many attempted assassinations do we need to instill that fear so that the people representing us like represent the will of the people. And while, for example, Luigi Mangione, the attempted he killed why am I like, there have been so many now like attempted assassinations with Trump that I'm like, what, was he actually killed? I think he did actually kill him. He killed the CEO. And so like obviously there, like given the public response, like there were clearly a lot of people who felt that this action was within their will, like within their, that they were like, I don't like what the CEO is doing and he should face, you know, some amount of consequences for that, for what he's done, for what he's allowed, for what he's enabled. And to that I say, like, it's all a game of Yahtzee. And let me bridge this gap for you. So we live in a day and age of like accessible public polling, which represents the will of the people to some extent, but is still always going to be like biased through like what question was asked, who was targeted in this campaign, like what polling entities do we trust. But in effect, like politicians are always taking like kind of a gamble as to like what does represent the will of the people, and it feels obvious to us as the people, and especially as the people being like misrepresented. We're like, how come you didn't know that this is how I felt? And obviously they're not, like, not all politicians are actually trying to act in the will of the people, and they're not like doing their earnest best to like represent the people that are their constituents. Some of them are prioritizing themselves. Not controversial to say. But you're always like taking a gamble that like what I'm doing is the right thing. And you know, when it comes to like, okay, a CEO should be fired for doing bad things, that feels like something that is more likely to be favorable in the like court of public opinion. But going as far as to like murder somebody, I'm thinking about the Charlie Kirk assassination. That was also an assassination. We've had a lot of shootings. Or rather, we've had a lot of assassinations and assassination attempts. It's like, maybe. It's weird. It's weird out here right now. Like, not in a way that like I feel that my life is in danger. Because I think while I express maybe what some would consider radical opinions on this podcast, like, I guess I'm taking the chance, I'm taking the gamble that like it's not going to get in front of people who would try to take justice into their own hands and or see me as like a worthwhile figurehead to dismantle. Like, even if my podcast was that big, like I still think, like I was saying, last episode I was saying it's extreme to send death threats. Like, that is so fucking crazy. Like, if I received a death threat in my mail, oh my god, that would be horrifying. I used to like, and like I was saying last episode too, like I used to not really like weigh those with the kind of concern that they deserve. That is crazy. Like, oh my god. And so politicians are playing Yahtzee. They're trying to fill in their board. They don't know what's going to happen when they have to tackle this issue, so they have to decide if they're going to put, you know, this in their 3 of a kind or in their 3s or in their 4s or whatever the fuck. And it's planning with uncertainty. And I don't know, I can extend this Yahtzee metaphor to life until the cows come home, but I think I've made enough of my point that we can move on. So I think that there is this nebulous line of fame where we move from like generally rooting for them as an underdog to expecting like more responsibility for use of their platform and like holding them to a higher standard. And I am not saying that we shouldn't hold them to higher standards, but I am saying that should not come at the expense of forgiveness for their shortcomings. And again, I'm not trying to like make the case that we should be forgiving more people point blank period. I think that we should have room for that should they like, you know, convince us and you know, demonstrate growth and learning. I'm not going to assume that they've grown and learned necessarily, like, but if they demonstrate that to me, I'm gonna I'm gonna take them at their actions, and sometimes it's not gonna be clear, and sometimes for example with Kanye, like I don't know how I'm gonna measure my willingness to forgive, or my like how righted he is in my eyes, and some of that will come from me like seeing how other people react to it, and especially like people affected by his actions, by his misgivings. Is misgivings the right word there? The people affected by his bad actions, his no-nos. So yeah, does Kanye deserve forgiveness? Probably. Again, I would be the pot calling the kettle crazy, and so I don't think it's just because he is like suffering from bipolar disorder that he like deserves forgiveness. But I think that plays a big part in my willingness to like see him in that nuance and say like, I don't know. I don't know what it's like to experience bipolar disorder. And so to an extent, like I'm willing to take him at his word, but I will see how his actions follow suit. So anyway, blah 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 blah. I was talking to my friend's mom about communication and whether or not like should you prioritize communicating accessibly. And I was thinking about this like cuz I said, you know, of course you want to communicate like accessibly. And then she was like, well, I'm not going to like dumb myself down. And like, girl, as though you're so high, like as though you're better. Cause she was saying that like being able to appropriately and effectively articulate is something that she really instilled in her daughter, my friend. And that she has like always been an advocate for. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I think that like speaking accessibly is really important. And so then she said, I don't want to, I would never dumb myself down. Like I'm gonna speak how it is correct for me to speak. And I was like, yeah, but you're gonna read the room, right? And she was like, well, yeah, like if I was speaking to like a technical versus like a non-technical audience or something like that, like, yeah, I'm gonna change what I say. And I was like, okay, so then why wouldn't you also change what you say when you talk to people who like have a different lived experience for some other reason? Like, so I don't know, I kind of checkmated her in my eyes. I don't think that she felt that way. And so this makes me think like to expand it out, when we're communicating to the masses, when we're trying to poll, when we're trying to like share a perspective, and we're a politician, or maybe we're a political action committee. Let me not. I've never been a part of a PAC, okay? They invited me at one of my workplaces and I said that's not for me. I said, no, thank you. Basically, if we're trying to make an appeal to the masses, like, can it have nuance? And this makes me think of the No Kings rally, where, like, they really had, like, a very simple message that was, like, the No Kings. Like, we do not live in an oligarchy. We don't live in an authoritarian regime. Like, that's not us. That's not the U.S. That's not American. Whereas, like, you know, less popular things hold more nuance, and maybe they're all holding different nuances, and that's why we have like a divided kind of like attention, is like some of them align more with other people than others. And but yet they're all, you know, like there's media that with increasing amounts of nuance, or political organizations or politicians, or even like influencers. When you think like, if they're making an appeal to the masses, and so it's probably in their best interest to lack nuance, because then they are more appealing. Like they don't segment anybody off, they don't cut anybody off. Whereas like me in this podcast, for example, I have an extraordinary amount of nuance happening, and at least I think so. Like I think I'm holding a lot, and I'm doing in my eyes a graceful job of like spinning all the plates, or I'm at least doing my best. And so I often think like, as a politician, would I find that it's necessary to sacrifice nuance for notoriety? This gets at kind of like the classic political or politician's dilemma, that like, you, in order to affect the change that you want, you need to get into office and you need to stay in office. So it's important that you do things that will get people to vote for you and that will keep people voting for you. And while it feels like I think there are a lot of politicians that would make the case that like if you were to do the things that are right, they might not be popular or might not be popular enough for you to actually make it into office, to actually affect any of the change that you want to make. And so like it behooves a politician to do things again that like make them the most appealing to the masses. And that's why I think the two-party system is so I guess has risen to dominance. And that's also the reason that I think the left is so critical of the Democratic Party, because they are trying to appeal to the masses and they're doing such a fucking bad job. I think they have very little to no idea like the majority of people who might vote Democrat can feel. I think they, and I don't think this is a hot take. I think I'm preaching to the choir, blah, 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 blah. Like, I think, and so I don't know if they're pivoting, like, since the election that Kamala lost, that, and I won't say that Kamala lost, that the Democratic Party lost. And I'll reiterate this because I have said this on previous episodes. I am as critical of the Democratic Party as I am the Republican Party. And I am, like, a leftist. Like, I'm on the left. Like, kind of way over there. Like, there's nothing moderate about my stance. Well, and I saw an advocate of, like, etymology nerd on Instagram, but they were saying that our political compass is, like, kind of moot at this point because it doesn't accurately represent, like, the issues that, in his words, bifurcate us. The issues that bifurcate us. The issues that divide us, effectively. The issues that divide us into, like, primarily two camps. You know, we have the spectrum. We have two spectrums for the political compass. So he was making the case that we should have, like, attitude towards technology and the role that it plays in our, like, society, basically, as one of the spectrums. And anyway, that's all to say, TLDR, the Democratic Party fumbled the fucking bag. And I think the case that I would make is that people have more capacity for nuance than the Democratic Party is currently, like, betting on. They're playing Yahtzee. They're like, okay, we gotta get a full house this next one. And they're like, full house is pretty common. It's the most common one. But they're consistently rolling not that, because that's not how short-term probability works. You're not bound to roll a full house. Like, you're actually more likely to roll anything other than a full house, if you think about it that way. Maybe that's not true. I don't know. I just thought about that for like 10 seconds and I did not land anywhere. Last thing about life being a game of Yahtzee. Like, we know the long-term probability of, like, rolling dice. Like, rolling 5 dice is quite a complex thing, but it's not that complex. Like, it's not the same as just rolling 2 for, like, craps. But it's, what am I trying to say? It's the same effect. We know the behavior of dice will fall along some kind of patterns in the long term. But a game of Yahtzee, much like our short lives on this planet, in this ether, in this part of the universe, in this way, in these skin suits, dude, is so much like a game of Yahtzee, the game of life, is short. And so, like, you can't accurately predict a lot of what's going to happen. Like, you can kind of, and, like, we know different things about, like, you know, people's likelihood to get diabetes or to, like, be pre-diabetic and, like, other medical phenomena. But, like, generally speaking, like, you never fucking know what's going to happen next. You can bet on it all you want. Things are going to change. And especially, like, I don't want to say now more than ever, because obviously I don't know what it was like to live in the last, like, several centuries. Like, that's not my bag. That's not my gig. Not my pig, not my farm. So a game of Yahtzee is short term, and basically, like, so is our life. And so we can predict all we want, but, like, truly anything could fucking happen. And I think that that's beautiful. I think that's exciting. I think that is, like, empowering and makes it feel like it gives me agency. Also, Arthur is on the screen for the visual listeners. Arthur, anything to say? Big purr machine. Okay, sorry, you gotta go, buddy. He does not want to go. Okay, well, I'm gonna end the episode here. I will conclude... Oh, now you want to go? Now you want to leave? I will conclude the episode by saying, basically, I continue to wager the idea of whether or not we should be taking justice into our own hands and what that looks like. And life is like a game of Yahtzee. You never know what's gonna happen. This makes me think of the user, like Tina, the internet personality Tina Can't Drive. She'll be like, life's like a game of Yahtzee. You never know what's gonna happen. And so maybe I'll do that. I'll steal her bag. Shout out Tina Can't Drive. Other content shout outs, Broy Deschanel. They make video essays. Ooh, they're so good. There was recently one called TikTok Feminism is Not Your Friend. I'll link it in the description. And then lastly, content shout out, Artisan on the Instagram and TikTok. Artixan. They are like a queer, like ADHD, like many neurodivergencies, a person after my own heart or after my own brain. They make like accessible accessories, and so they have these bags, and then they have this ability to like let dice decide what kind of like features of the bag you'll get. And so they post these videos of rolling the dice to decide these bags, and I know that this is not like politically correct to say, but it is like crack. It's so good. it's like Mom, my favorite show's on, can we go watch it? Like, can we watch my favorite show? It's really simple, but it's just like really good. And so anytime they post a new one, it's at the top of my feed. Instagram knows what I want. So anyway, those are my 3 content shout outs. Music shout out, I'm a Tidal user now. Shout out to my friend Cotter for putting me on their family plan, putting me and Colin on their family plan. And I think last time I was wagering joining, and so we made the switch. And Tidal also has higher quality streaming, which Colin and I are pretty positive that we've been like hearing new things in music that we have long known, which is really exciting. And they pay their like streaming numbers, pay the best to artists as far as I know. And so far their like recommended mixes are pretty good, and the like shuffle is good. Not the shuffle, the like recommended song, like after you finish an album, I think it changes every time, which is nice, because I was getting the same thing when I would finish the DeJoe album, the Decide. When I would finish that, it would always play like That I Missed You by Vansire, I think it was, or Goth Babe, Weekend Friend, something like that. And so anyway, shout out to Tidal. I'm liking my experience there so far. If you want to sponsor me, just go ahead and do it already. And I've been listening to Inji, Super Lame, the album Super Lame by Inji. Party girl shit. It's so good. I'll link that in the comments. I love that album. It's so fucking fun. I don't know, it's kind of perfect. Like the lyrics are fun and vulnerable, and the beats are awesome, and it's like quite high production value, and so it's just kind of like really good. It's just kind of like really good. What's another music shout out? Still on Lizzie McAlpine, never not. Kind of on Noah Kahan. He just released a new album, and so Colin is famously a big Noah Kahan boy as of like the last 6 months, and so he's all up in this album. And I don't want to get canceled or anything, but folk music is just kind of not for me. And so Colin is actually with Brady seeing a folk band tonight at the Cactus Club. And I was like, sorry guys, I gotta record Kappa Sab. And knowing full well that like folk is just not my thing. But I did see their NPR Tiny Desk performance, and it was incredible. Like, see and respect and believe. But I decided it was not worth $30 on my Friday night to go see them. So thank you for listening. I had such a fun time, and I'm gonna record a second episode maybe later this weekend, or like next week at the very latest, because I am dedicated to the idea of churning these out on a regular basis, because I think it makes me feel good and makes me feel good about myself. And so yeah, I will be doing that. So thank you for watching. Vote. I love you. Let's wait to assassinate any more CEOs until I decide whether or not we should take justice into our own hands. Is that cool? Is that cool with everybody? Can we table that for the next meeting? Thank you. Kisses. Bye-bye.